Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 10, the Summon Bonum, Chapter 35. And what is the title? 35. The gopis sing of Krishna as he wanders in the forest, text number 26. Sri Suka Uvacha Evam Brajastrijo Rajam Krishna Lila Nugajati Ramireha Sutachitas Tammanaska Mahodaya. Sri Suka Uvacha Evam Brajastrijo Rajam Krishna Lila Nugajati Ramireha Sutachitas Tammanaska Mahodaya. Sri Suka Uvacha Evam Brajastrijo Rajam Krishna Lila Nugajati Ramireha Sutachitas Tammanaska Mahodaya. Please chant. Sri Suka Uvacha Evam Brajastrijo Rajam Krishna Lila Nugajati Ramireha Sutachitas Tammanaska Mahodaya. Sri Suka Uvacha Evam Brajastrijo Rajam Krishna Lila Nugajati Ramireha Sutachitas Tammanaska Mahodaya. Sri Suka Uvacha Evam Brajastrijo Rajam Krishna Lila Nugajati Ramireha Sutachitas Tammanaska Mahodaya. Sri Suka Uvacha Evam Brajastrijo Rajam Krishna Lila Nugajati Ramireha Sutachitas Tammanaska Mahodaya. Sri Suka Uvacha Sukadeva Goswami said, Evam thus Brajastriyaha, the woman of Braja, Rajam, O king, Krishna Leela, about the pastimes of Krishna, Anugajatihi, continuously chanting, Ramire, they enjoy, Ahashu, during the days, Chitaha, their hearts absorbed in him, Tatmanaskaha, their minds absorbed in him, Maha, great, Udajaha, experiencing a festivity. Translation and purport by the disciple of His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Srila Sukadeva Goswami said, O king, thus during the daytime the woman of Vrindavan took pleasure in continuously singing about the pastimes of Krishna, and those ladies' minds and hearts, absorbed in him, were filled with great festivity. Purport. This verse definitely confirmed that the so-called pain of the heartbroken gopis is actually great spiritual bliss. On the material platform, pain is pain, period. But on the spiritual platform, so-called pain is simply a different variety of a spiritual ecstasy. In the Western countries, people take pleasure in mixing different flavors of ice cream to produce wonderful combinations of flavor. Similarly, on the spiritual platform, Sri Krishna and his devotees expertly mix the flavors of a spiritual bliss. Thus, every day was a treat for the gopis. Thus end the purpose of the humble servants of His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, to the 10th canto, 35th chapter of the Srimad Bhagavatam, entitled, The Gopis Sing of Krishna and His Wonders in the Forest. Om Jnana Timrandasya Jnananjana Shalakaja Chakshur Ummilitam Yena Tasmai Sri Guruve Namaha. Namo Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutale Srimate Ramapada Swami Niti Nami. Namo Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Iti Namine. Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirveshesha Shunyavadi Pashatya Deshatarine Vanchakalpa Taruvyasha Kripa Sindhu Vyaevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. So the conclusion of this chapter, in which the highest form of love of God is displayed, and in one sense we're exposed to that. Srila Sukadeva Goswami is narrating these feelings of ecstasy that the gopis, the young gopis of Vrindavan, experience in separation from Krishna. So this type of expressions of love of Godhead is described by Lord Chaitanya as the highest, the most intense. It's the highest because it's the most intense. We have heard through the different classes and the reading of this chapter that this manifestation of Krishna Prema is called Vipralamba Bhava, or sometimes also the term viraha bhakti is also applied, which means in separation. So there is these two types of connections that we have with Krishna, or forms of devotional service, of bhakti. One is called sambhoga, and the other one is called vipralamba. So sambhoga is when we are directly in the presence of Krishna, connecting with Krishna. And vipralamba is when we're separated, we're not at least in the company of Krishna. It's in separation. And it's explained that bhakti or prema in separation is even more intensified, because the desire to be with Krishna is so powerful that it becomes this very intense meditation and absorption in Krishna. And that type of absorption, it becomes release, when there's a meeting again with Krishna. So enhances also the union with Krishna, this type of love in separation, the intensity that is there. And also is explained, like there's a very nice story, we liked it very much actually. Both my wife and I, we like this place in Vrindavan very much, Prem Sarovar. In fact, we have in our home, we have a very beautiful picture of the Prem Sarovar that, it sort of dominates, our living room. So we sort of always connecting with this space. And the pastime in Prem Sarovar is very beautiful and depicted how intense this mood of separation is, that completely immediately covers, just to enter in that mood immediately covers any other form of expressions of prema. It's so intense. So in the pastimes in Prem Sarovar is a lake that was filled with the tears of ecstasy in separation from Srimati Radharani. And in terms, Krishna also was very touched by Srimati Radharani's intense love, that he also cried. So the tears of love in separation fill that sarovar, that lake. And so there was this time that both Krishna and Srimati Radharani were sitting together, enjoying their pastime, the loving pastimes. And then as they're sitting in this very beautiful space, under a tree, under the shadow of the tree, then a bee was very much attracted to Srimati Radharani's beauty. And this bumblebee was coming and it started to, hum around Srimati Radharani. And Srimati Radharani was a little startled, and Krishna jokingly say, Madhu can watch, it can sting you. And then she was a little scared, and Krishna then made an arrangement for Madhu to leave. So we know that Krishna is known as Madhusudana. Madhusudana is a name of Krishna that is given because he is the killer or the enemy of this demon Madhu. But Madhusudana is also a term by which, a bee is named, because Madhu also means honey. And so Krishna tells Srimati Radharani please don't worry, my dear Srimati Radharani, Madhu has gone. And just by mentioning that Madhu is gone, then Srimati Radharani, just by hearing those words, she was overpowered by this thinking, this feeling of separation when Krishna is gone. So that feeling overpowered her. And even though she was next to Krishna, she just became overwhelmed by the feelings of separation. And she just broke into these tears, this cascade of tears. It was so intense. And there was no way to pacify her. Krishna, I'm here. And she couldn't. It was overtaken by this feeling of separation. So it's so powerful, so intense. Lord Chaitanya described this feeling as in the Shikshastaka verses, as, what is it? Govinda Virahena me Astishyaba Padam Vatam Pinashtuman Adarshanam Marma. No, that's the next one. How's it going? There's the beginning. Huh? No, that's the 8th one. The 7th is Govinda Virahena me. That's how it. Oh. You have to chant it all together to remember. Jugayitan nimeshena chakshusha pavrisayitan sunjayitan jagat sarvam govinda virahena me. Jugayitan nimeshena. Like, my dear Lord, feeling your separation, I'm considering a moment to be like 12 years or more, to be like a yuga. Jugayitan nimeshena. Chakshusha. My eyes are filled with tears like torrents of rains, and I'm feeling all vacant in the world in your absence. So even a moment, it becomes this intense feeling. So this is a narration of this chapter. It's put so into context because the gopis, during the daytime, they were completely absorbed in this mood of separation. And during night, they will come together with Krishna. So it is explained that this is two different displays of bhakti rasa. And they enhance each other. But of the two, it is explained, Lord Chaitanya let us know that this absorption and separation is the most intense form of prema. And therefore, is something that Lord Chaitanya came to give us. Is this type of worship, this type of absorption is what Lord Chaitanya came to give us. And one beautiful thing that it is explained here is that although what we read is all these emotions that are filled with pain, with broken heart, with anxiety, we read all these type of emotions that the gopis and the devotees have to go through in separation, that one from the material perspective, it's like, oh my God, this is very intense. I feel bad for these persons. When you see someone depressed and brokenhearted, you feel for the person like is suffering. Pain, emotional pain sometimes is even more intense than physical pain. Because physical pain, at one point you can treat it, you can see, but emotional pain, how you do with that thing? It just remains there. Physical pain, after, some time, it becomes healed. Emotional pain can be with you through your life. It doesn't heal so easy. It's much more difficult to heal. So seeing someone in emotional pain is very intense. But it's explained that this rasa in the spiritual plane is another form of ecstasy, of happiness, of divine happiness. So, therefore, the acharyas give us, these signs of rasa, especially the rasa acharya in our line, in this age, is Srila Rupa Goswami. And Srila Rupa Goswami has given us, a very, very detailed understanding, scientific. It breaks down all the different aspects of this ocean of rasa. He called it the Bhakti Rasa Amrita. Bhakti Rasa Amrita Sindhu. Sindhu means ocean. It's an ocean of rasa that is an amrita, that is nectar, immortal nectar. So Srila Rupa Goswami has given us the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu and the Ujjalamani. The Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu takes us from Shraddha, breaks down completely the progress that we go from Shraddha to Prema. And the Ujjalamani take it from Prema up to explanations of the ecstasy of love that is only found in Srimati Radharani and Lord Chaitanya, Krishna himself. This Mahabhava Prema that no other form or entity can actually experience. So it gets in the Ujjalamani book gets in the very intimate forms, expressions of prema, way beyond our comprehensions. In fact, to understand the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu is quite something. It's so precise and so scientific. It's almost like you have to be a scientist, a transcendental scientist. So many names and terms, divisions, that is quite fascinating. And the whole understanding, the understanding starts with understanding Krishna's position as the Rasa Raj, the king of all rasas, the enjoyer of all rasa. In the Taittiriya Upanishad, there's a very famous verse that Prabhupada quotes very much, and Srila Rupa Goswami quotes, Raso Vai Saha. Rasam Hyevayam Ladva Nandi Bhavati Ko Hyevan Evanyat Ka Pranyat Yat Esha Akasha Anando Nashyat Eshahi Evanandayati. The supreme truth, the absolute truth is rasa. The jiva becomes blissful on obtaining this rasa. Who will work with body and prana if this blissful, complete form did not exist. He gives bliss to all. So the essence of all things is this rasa. And to understand how we become united with Krishna through this principle of rasa, the fact is that it's explained that the absolute truth, this is all about, Krishna is about rasa. It's about the relations that he has and the different moods of the different combinations of these different moods and tastes that simply causes Krishna's bliss and in turn bliss to all. When Krishna is happy, automatically we're happy. When Krishna is satisfied. So naturally, the living entity is also searching from this rasa because it's just part of our nature. We're eternally unified with Krishna in rasa. So the whole thing is about the relationship that we have with Krishna, the loving relationship. And that in that space, we experience this transcendental bliss. And these rasas, they divided in so many, it's a whole palette of emotions that are experienced, and they all basically are different manifestations of bliss in the spiritual world. Now, rasa, when it becomes polluted or when it becomes directed at sense gratifications, that is, when it's not directed at Krishna, then we have this distorted form of rasa. And that's what we experience in this material world. So then, regardless, so the way it becomes, upside down. So when in the material world, all these different emotions, they lead to an experience of bliss. In the material world, all these different emotions, they lead to suffering. So even when someone is experiencing some happiness, eventually that happiness is going to turn into suffering. So therefore, the experience in this world is already being described by Krishna. Dukkhalayam. Dukkhalayam means that is full of suffering. Regardless, that's the experience in this material world. The experience in the spiritual world is Ananda Maya. It's happiness, bliss. Regardless. So it's important to understand there's this tendency, and then when it's directed, there's a very, someone wrote this nice story of an Indian boy. His name was Arjun. And he was from Bengaluru. Where is that place, Bengaluru? Yeah, where is it? In Karnataka, South India. Okay, so this is a story of Arjun from Bengaluru. You're from there? Yeah? Do you know Arjun? Do you know Arjun? Joking. So this is a story of Arjun, a young boy from Bengaluru. He was traveling to Delhi. On the station, when the train arrived, the people rushed in, pushing each other, and Arjun had no choice but to wait for his turn. So you can relate to that, no? When you're traveling in India, the crowds, everybody goes crazy, you don't know where you are. So Arjun was waiting for his turn. As he was about to board, he heard a voice, as sweet as of that of a cuckoo, bird. Stop! Arjuna turned back to perceive the source of that sweet sound. A girl was running towards him, her open hair waving along with the wind, her petal lips saying something which Arjuna never could decode, and those mesmerizing blue eyes blinking as the sun plays with the clouds of dumbfounded Arjuna. He was awestruck on the first sight of her. The next moment he realized the train has left. Arjuna hurriedly turned back to check on her, and there she was, with thousands of emotions easily decodable. Her petal lips had faded, for she was sad. Those pretty eyes were all red, and her fair face has turned pink due to the combined emotions of sadness and anger. So the girl was trying to catch the train too. So she was waving at the train, stop, stop! And then when she got to the train, had already left, so she was very disappointed and upset. But Arjuna, so as she left disheartened, Arjuna could not only watch her pass by, his mind began to fancy her as his friend, a conjugal lover, and an adored relationship, and he was blushing to imagine the parenthood he could have with her as his lifetime partner. Arjuna was frozen, the violins wouldn't stop, and by the time he could collect himself, she disappeared, and with Arjuna remaining only those best moments. Arjuna still desired to see her again, know her name, get in touch with her, get a touch of her, and as he still awaits for her. He didn't mind missing his train now, for he wanted his life on the track of his newfound love, and didn't want to derail. He decided to pursue this newfound origin of his rasa mellows of relationships. So this is an example of rasa when it's directed not at Krishna. So you get into this whole phantasmagoria, this whole thing that one call in this material world love. And then what it leads, regardless, is to disappointment, to suffering. Because even if Arjuna was successful in getting the girl, then it's a temporary thing. And most likely, with the type of narration that we just read, you doubt that the poor boy will actually ever meet this girl again. Like Arjuna, all the living entities are being eligible to pursue or desire all the essences of relationship and enjoy the material mellows. But not every Arjuna can get hold of his adorable partner to enjoy the rasa mellows of relationships. And even if one does succeed in finding the right one, the attempt to enjoy this rasa doesn't last for eternity. Yet, this very hankering for the rasa and its source by looking for it in different persons and objects of this world indicates the innate desire of every living entity, the soul's longing for rasa. We, the jivas, individual spirit soul, hold an eternal relationship with the super soul, the Supreme Lord. Every jiva holds a specific rasa mellow in which the relationship with the Supreme Lord is relished, not temporarily but for eternity. It is but a perfected reflection of that rasa which exists in the relationships between various jivas in this material world. So it's important to understand the science of rasa for ourselves. It's important to understand how does it work? what are the symptoms of this, of becoming, advancing in the path of this process of bhakti? Because as we understand if we follow the signs, we can understand how we're progressing. And as we move on, from gradually from shraddha, from faith, to cleansing of the heart, to being nishta, to being steady, to start to become to become attached and have a taste for our relationship with Krishna. And when it goes all the way to developing this rati, or this love, this bhava, then we can understand at that point. Srila Rupa Goswami breaks down what are the symptoms of each one of these stages. And understanding that, then we can continue advancing without much obstacles, because nothing is worse to having a sentimental interpretation of these different expressions or emotions, because they're there, we already have it. We're experiencing those emotions. But again, we're not directed at Krishna, we're doing the Arjuna program, the boy Arjuna from Bengaluru. But when it's directed at Krishna, it's a complete different thing. Then it's bhakti rasa. When all these different emotions, they call sthai bhavas in Srila Rupa Goswami. He breaks it down, and there's a term for them. So so it is explained, when these sthai bhavas are directed at Krishna, then it becomes bhakti rasa. And in bhakti rasa, then there's all these combinations. So then these sthai bhavas, they become combined. And the sthai bhavas, what is defined is all the 12 different. There's 5 principal rasas, and there's 7 secondary rasas. So these are called sthai bhavas. And the 5 we know is neutrality, servitorship, friendship, parental, and conjugal. And then the other 7, the 7 secondary ones, I can remember, but you have an idea when you study the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. You have one that is joking or hasya. You want one that is shocking, you're shocked, in awe. Someone that is karuna, that is, you're feeling compassion. There is fear. There is gas, it's ghastly. So there's 7 like that. And so they can combine, and they create a particular type of flavor. I think the devotee who wrote the purport, just by his wording, is most likely His Holiness Hridayananda Goswami, and he explains that it's like combining different flavors of ice cream to create this very wonderful treat. So the combination of all these different sthai bhavas, they create all kinds of different moods of enjoyment from Krishna. And Srila Rupa Goswami explained that let me see here, just a breakdown. So, there are 4 ingredients in which this emotion, or these Thai Babas, become combined. And they call Vibhava, Anubhava, Sattvika Bhava, and Vyabhichari Bhava. So, each one of these emotions can combine with this form, with this 4. And then, so Vibhava, the first one means the emotions, what causes that emotion. And they're divided, this Vibhava can be divided into 2 categories, Alambhana and Udipana. So the cause of the emotion, and then, so you have these 2 categories. So Alambhana is basically the characters that are part of, that are creating that emotion. So those are 2, the Ashraya and the Vishaya. And so those are it takes 2 to love. So the characters that are there. So the Ashraya is the devotee. The Ashraya means the shelter, or the shelter of this loving emotion, or bhakti, or prema. And Vishaya is the object of love, that's Krishna. So, Ashraya, the devotee, Vishaya, Krishna. And the Udipan is Krishna's characteristics, his qualities. So, his beauty, his smile, his lotus eyes, his lotus feet, his pose, like all these type of characteristics and qualities of Krishna, they become Udipan, and they cause the devotees, just, like we hear during these orations, the gopis just remember all these Udipans, the sound of his flute, and how they become mesmerized. It gets combined with all the emotions like that. They hear, they become stunned. There's all kinds of things that happens with that combination, combinations of things. So, so those are the Vibhavas. The Anubhavas is the external expressions of that the emotions, has. So there's a particular external manifestation, and that they're described as dancing, choking up, singing, speaking loudly, stretching the body, hiccups, yawning, sighing, disregard for others, drooling, laughing, railing, grinding the teeth. So these are all visible manifestations. And these are called Anubhavas. And then the Sattvika Bhavas are internal. Is when this whole, when it becomes an internal, what's happening internally, that not necessarily, and that internal thing has an external explosion, but what you're processing inside that causes, something to manifest out. So those are the ones that you become stunned, or you start to sweat profusely, or just the hair stands on end, to the standing of the hairs, the breaking of the voice, shivering, change of color, tears, and fainting. So these are called, these are the Sattvika Bhavas. We hear Lord Chaitanya also praying, when the Sattvika Bhavas will become manifested in my heart. You know, what is it? Nayanangalara Sudaraja, Nayanangalara Sudaraja, Badanangad Gadad Vidajagira, Pulakairni Chitamba Pukada, Tava Nama Grahane Bhavishati. When will the symptoms will become manifested in my heart? That when I chant your holy name, tears will flow from my eyes, my voice was chopped up like that. So Lord Chaitanya describes this Sattvika Bhavas. And Vyabhichari Bhavas is explained that there are 33 symptoms that appear suddenly in the ocean of Sthayi Bhava, and they call Vyabhichari Bhavas. They're transitory emotional symptoms. I don't remember which one, but I think, is again, there's the internal turmoil that is happening, and then there's all kinds of things that they're symptoms that manifest, like that. And so all these symptoms, they nourish this Sthayi Bhava, these 12 different rasas. You just nourish it and, make it a whole, the verse say, a festival. So much beautiful enjoyment, for Krishna and the devotees. So that's what we're aspiring to come to that position. And it is explained that it's important to understand, again, this science. So we do seriously study the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, so not to be confused, because again, at times we experience these things. I don't know, there has been times in a wonderful kirtan that you experience your hair stands on end. And or sometimes there's some emotion of hearing about pastimes of Krishna that you start to go tearful, like that. So one spirit is there's some emotion that's happening there, but we're not necessarily on this stage in which the Sthayi Bhavas manifest. It is explained by Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur that these symptoms comes when you reach the stage of Rati. It's just before Prema, when these Sthayi Bhavas start to become manifested. So even though in a neophyte position we may experience what is called is like a shadow, like we experience a shadow form of the holy name. How's it called? Nama Abhas. So similarly, there is also, we experience all these shadows, emotions, like that. In general, those who are very advanced, they don't display these emotions. Very rarely they display these emotions. To not confuse the neophyte. So, and take it cheaply. So then you become a sahaja. Like that. Sahajas are those who take these emotions, these transcendental emotions, very cheaply. And because they're not elevated, then it's actually useless. It becomes more like a disturbance in society. So I stop here. If there's any comments or questions.
Is
Yeah, keep it tight, Joy Galadev.
Jitendra's giving me 2 minutes.
Yes.
You have a timer? Hare Krishna, bro. Thank you for your class.
Thank you, bro.
You made a lot of wonderful points that brought us so many things. Here's a side joke. You said, you quoted Lord Chaitanya, if our voice doesn't choke up when we hear the holy name, then from my experience, then we want to choke the devotees when we hear their name. Therefore, there's so much friction as a joke, but obviously that happens in Kali Yuga. But you were mentioning this Prema Rasa and Srila Rupa Goswami's Bhakti Rasa Amrita, and I was actually meditating on this point where the Lord's mercy is compared to an ocean recently. And because Gaur Govinda Maharaj, in his book Trinada Bisuni Chant, More Than the Straw in the Street, in chapter 11, he gives a very profound analogy. He first says basically, this Prema Rasa has descended from the spiritual world. Golokera Prema Dana Harinam Sankirtan. Kali Kali Nama Rupe Krishna Avatar. Nam Hoite Hor Sabra Jaganistar. So, but this holy name is compared to a water, and he basically says that Hare Krishna is what we should chant, and in all humility is how we should chant it. If we focus on what we should chant, Hare Krishna, and not how we should chant it in all humility, then our happiness, this prema ras, will completely pour out. And he gives a very profound analogy. And I discovered later that this analogy is actually mentioned in the Bhagavatam, 11th canto, chapter 16, verse 43, if I'm not mistaken. So the analogy that I first heard from Gaur Govinda Maharaj, he basically says, I'm paraphrasing to keep it short, but he basically says, basically like a bowl, take a clay bowl. A bowl is either whole or a clay bowl is full of holes. A clay bowl that can hold water. A clay bowl that's full of holes cannot hold water. So he's basically describing that if our character is whole with good qualities, then we can receive this prema rasa from Krishna. If our character is full of holes, then this prema rasa just pours out. Bahu jamakadi yadi shravanam kirtan tabutana paya Krishna padi premada. And that's why this verse from the Adi Leela chapter 8 verse 16 says that we can still chant Hare Krishna for many births. Many births. But why does our happiness still pour out? Why do we have so many complaints about the devotees? Because we have holes in our character. Therefore, though we're given so much, an ocean of Bhakti Rasa Amrita, an ocean of so much mercy, Sadhu Sangha Nama Kirtan, Bhagavad Shravan Mathura Bhas, so many mercy. There's so many verses. We're getting our ocean. Yet why is there so many complaints? Why? Because we have holes in our characters. So my question is how can we plug these holes in where we realize that actually this is the greatest blessing in the world? If I go out in the material world, there's so many places to keep things perspective. There's so many people who have so many things worse than us. You could just go on the south side of Chicago or anywhere in Chicago. Let's speak of going to Afghanistan. And now in Israel, where they're blowing up people every day. And yet we complain about have so many complaints. So what are some steps we could take to plug these holes within our character before Krishna makes our situation much worse? And then we could be more grateful to the devotees. Thank you, Hare Krishna.
Yeah, my spiritual master recently has been answering all the how questions with one answer. He said he applies, my spiritual master has been answering all the how questions with one answer. He said he applies across all the how we can do this, how we can do that. He says Sadhu Sangha. Sadhu Sangha is the answer for all the how-to questions. And it's very clever. In fact, indeed is the association with devotees which will purify our character. We're being forced to do that. If somehow or other we understand that the solution for all our flaws is within the association of devotees, and regardless we remain steadfast in that association, we will become purified. But if you don't have faith on that, then will take yourself out of the association of devotees until you come, to the point that you can appreciate it. Krishna will help us in one sense, to come to that realization that just remain in the association of devotees, search for those who are advanced, and take their association and serve. And in general, just serve devotees, regardless. So, by that process, we can actually sort of evolve in our character and become purified. It's the whole process of sadhana bhakti in the association of devotees is about purifying ourselves. Purifying means, you're plugging those holes. And as we plug the hole, we can hold a little more. Eventually, we're a functional, bowl like that. So, any other?
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. You have a very wonderful explanation you gave regarding the bhavas. I appreciate, and really, I was getting confused a little bit. Can you describe more about Ashraya? Ashraya and Vishaya. That's two terms used. Ashraya, that means not taking shelter, and Vishaya is the object of love.
The understanding that I have is just a simple, obviously this is a very deep science, and Srila Rupa Goswami can, go deeper and deeper and deeper on the whole thing. But, so it's just the definition of love. So you have the subject and the object. So the subject of love is Ashraya, and the object of love is Vishaya. So the subject means, that when we talk about love, they have to be, you have to direct your love. Your love is, you have love, and that love gets directed at the object, of that love. So, devotee becomes, the only object of their love is Krishna. It's a single thing. So Krishna is the only Vishaya. And
thinking, maybe I am not correct. So, the Vishaya, or the subject. So, in loving affair, Vishaya, maybe the pastimes of Krishna, that means you are contemplating again and again and thinking about the activities, pastimes. So, am I right? Maybe in that sense.
Yeah, that shows, their absorption is all directed at Krishna. So that's what is become bhakti rasa. That's what is displayed. All these emotions. That's the whole thing that is explained in the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. That all these emotions, all these sattvika bhavas, they're directed at Krishna. Is the only object is Krishna, and then it becomes bhakti rasa. That's what it says. I have very limited sort of understanding of the whole thing. It's actually a little beyond my capacity. But sort of like making sense a little bit of the simple connection things. But it's a very superficial understanding of it, and from my side.
Again, how can you explain? Means how can you correlate in between Ashraya and Vishaya? Means how you will make relationship? How is they are interconnected?
Well, we hear, that the devotees' full absorption in Krishna, so their minds and their heart are totally absorbed in Krishna. But Krishna responds the same way, reciprocates the same way. Then the absorption, Krishna becomes absorbed in his devotee. So it's a reciprocal thing. So then it's explained that there's the competition happens. Krishna becomes blissful in the expressions of love, and then when the devotees see, then it's this eternal competition. So it's a reciprocal thing. It takes two. It's the experience of rasa. Both Krishna and the devotees are experiencing. So the ecstasy of that rasa, both Krishna and the devotees are experiencing. But the devotee becomes, for the devotee, the only object is Krishna. Like that. So that's much I can say. It's deep, I mean, you can go on, but that, I'm telling you, it's beyond my capacity. So, like.
You'd highlighted that particular story to paint the picture of, I guess, very ordinary kind of attraction. And then the whole class was spent, deciphering transcendental emotions. And so in thinking about it, it would seem that the kind of very ordinary attraction for another human being, it's a lot of that attraction remains on the mental plane compared to engagement in transcendental emotion, which is directly connected to Krishna. So I think the explanation you gave to Karuna Nidhi was very enlightening from the point of view that the reciprocal nature of it is what makes it factual, because it's directly in connection with Krishna, whereas on the mundane plane or the ordinary plane, it would seem that there's no actual proper reciprocation, because two entities functioning merely on the mental plane, you can see it would be difficult for there to be genuine emotional connection. So I was just contemplating the matter a little.
Yeah. And then just the temporary nature just defines it, you're doomed, like that. So, yeah, that's a good point. I'm going to stop here. It's already 8:44. So, sorry, Prabhu Jai. Garantara Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai.